There it is. It's permanent now too. All right, action. All right, Andrew, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Andrew Rigie is the executive director of the NYC Hospitality Alliance. It's been around for 13 years now. You know, truly has been one of the most impactful kind of policy organizations. So you making the time for us today means a lot. There's a lot of policy organizations out there that are trying to move the needle, but your organization so specifically moves the needle for small local restaurants to accomplish the goals of the city. It's been incredible to be a part of. So I just want to thank you for all your work.
I really appreciate that. We're out there every day advocating, supporting the industry, just like you are. So when it comes from someone who's doing the work, is always welcome and grateful to hear it.
Yeah. And tell me how you started it, like how you got it going. I know you were both cooks. So
yeah, I mean, I was in the industry forever, you know, going back to my great grandparents. I had bakeries, cafes. I went to culinary school. I worked in all different positions in, you know, restaurants. And then about 24 years ago, I don't know, it was a long time ago now, I got into like this advocacy side, the association side, being able to keep, you know, one foot in restaurants, in nightlife, but then also public policy, government advocacy, and just kind of nonprofit organizations. And about 13 plus years ago, a lot of the major players in the industry, restaurants and nightlife, but also industry product and service providers, looked at the economic impact, the social impact of the city's hospitality industry and said, you know, we need our own independent 5-borough-wide association to represent our interests, to advocate for policies that support us, push back against policies that hurt our small businesses, hurt job creation, and that can also just be part of the community and help, you know, unite all of these different businesses to make sure we're speaking with one voice as much as possible and providing support and services so all these businesses that, you know, people can succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people realize like the how big the New York City hospitality, you know, industry is, and you know, even from sheer number of employees. And I don't know if I caught you off guard, but do you have some like stats on like just size of the industry and how much influence it actually has in New York?
Yeah, well, so there's more than 25,000 eating and drinking establishments across the 5 boroughs. So that's more than, you know, some states have. We employ about 300,000 people from all walks of life. You know, it's a great industry for opportunity. You know, you can have some fancy degree, but you could also come here and, you know, not speak English, and you can find opportunity. You can work through, you know, through the ranks and end up owning your place. I mean, I always say, like, the person maybe who started off in the mailroom at the bank and now owns the bank, maybe there's 1 or 2 of them, but the person who started as like a dishwasher or a prep cook and now is an executive chef or even owns their own place, that's the norm, and it's a beautiful thing. And we generate, you know, tens of billions of dollars of economic activity that generate through payroll tax, through sales tax, through corporate taxes that fund all of our city's essential services. So whether it be food relief, whether it be, you know, school, whether it be anything else, picking up the garbage, the tax dollars that are generated from this industry really are an engine for the city.
Which I always find so interesting because, you know, you could say that, you know, some corporations and some other industries, and, you know, you look at them and they got, you know, all this lobbying money, their priorities are up in front. But I mean, it's really only been in the last, and a lot, big credit to you, like the last 10 years where chefs and people have kind of entered this advocacy policy space. What do you think the barriers are for like the local restaurant, the chef? Like, how do they get involved, start to understand it? I know there's a lot of education behind it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at the nature of the business, right? You're working nights, weekends, holidays. When your friends and family are going out to a restaurant, you're probably there working in the restaurant. And because it's a business where even successful restaurants aren't making, you know, tons of money, they don't have that same, you know, infrastructure and time to hire big lobbyists and do all of these different things. And they often just get frustrated, burnt down, and they're dealing dealing with the frustration of a permit or a license or some ridiculous fine that's being levied on them. Like, they don't always have the know-how. They may be a great cook. They may be super hospitable, know how to run a small business, but they're not political advocates.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they can get frustrated by kind of just feeling like it's a little bit hopeless no matter what they do. And that's where we come in, because we can take these individual businesses and unite them, and collectively we have a powerful voice. We have an agenda, what laws, what regulations do we need to change? What policies can the city, state, and federal government enact to help these businesses succeed? We are so important to that economic foundation, but also the fabric of New York City, right?
Sure.
Walk down the street, you see more restaurants everywhere. Like, doesn't matter where you come from, people relate to food. They relate to the customs that you have when consuming that food and being together. And it's about uniting all of these important things that people relate to and they care about, and turning it into a advocacy campaign, just turning into an organization that can represent those interests and, speak for people who sometimes feel like they have no voice.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating about it too is, like, most of the electeds, and even, our mayor-elect now, spend so much time at restaurants and talking about restaurants, and, Mayor Adams also very restaurant focused, and they really are like the third space in the city. I'm really good. I just read your advocacy priorities, as I got them in my newsletter this morning, which, by the way, the Hospitality Alliance newsletter, incredible. You should sign up. Everybody sign up.
NYCalliance.org. You can go and sign up and stay up to date on what's going on.
Yeah, that's where I get my policy in the restaurant industry news. But, what is, like, one thing that you really gravitated to, that you really celebrate as a win in the last, 13 years policy-wise?
I mean, this is such a good question, such a tough question, because, like, we've had so many policy wins that help different businesses in different ways. But, like, no matter how much we keep, quote unquote, winning, there's still more challenges out there. So, like, the job is never done. So I would, if it's okay, and I can drill down to a specific point, but I think particularly during the pandemic, when, our industry was just on the brink of survival, we were able to so quickly get so many policies enacted that helped save thousands and thousands of restaurants from permanently shuttering, saved hundreds of thousands of jobs, but also put the needs of our industry in the forefront of the public consciousness. And I thought it was, heartfelt and remarkable about how just the general public and our government officials really cared so much. At the same time, a lot of those policies made it so difficult for the restaurants to actually operate. And maybe some of the policies during the pandemic didn't make sense. But it was a delicate balance. But I think sometimes you can't always fix somebody's problem, or fix it in the way that they need, or fully fix it. Life and advocacy and regulations about compromise. But what you can do is you can always listen to people, you can always be there for people, and you can always fight for people. Sure. And I think at the core, that's what people really care about, and it's like what they remember. So I think the one policy item, in a sense, that I'm most proud about is our presence and our unwavering commitment to fighting for our industry when they needed us most.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, it was, look, my background in the restaurant industry, I don't think I knew who the mayor was when I was a cook. You know what I mean? I had no idea what was going on. And then you have all this time, and you do really realize that if you do speak up, the electeds are going to listen to you. They want to listen to you. They want to communicate with you, because you are a community. The restaurants are community centers in their neighborhoods. Yeah. I do want to pivot, because I really enjoyed your policy recommendations. I shared them with my staff because I just loved how concise and like clear and like direct they are. And it's often hard to do that. But if you don't mind, I want to talk about scaffolding.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it.
And I'm going off the cuff a little bit.
Go.
But I don't think, this whole scaffolding challenge in New York, Do you have to give us an understanding of like how scaffolding affects the small business industry, the restaurants, and like what are we looking to change?
Yeah, well, there was one data point that I found so fascinating. I hope it's not true anymore. I should say it's less true. But it was, if you were to line up all the scaffolding in New York City, it would go from Manhattan to Montreal.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So now, I don't know, maybe Manhattan to Buffalo or something, but there's far too much. So those are the sidewalk sheds that get put up when they're doing construction. Without going too much down a rabbit hole, there's different laws in New York City that require buildings every certain number of years, every time they're doing types of construction, to put this scaffolding up to basically protect pedestrians who pass by from like a brick or something falling, on their head. So obviously it's needed. But if you look at New York City compared to any other city around the globe, no place has the amount of scaffolding that New York City has. Nobody has the amount of scaffolding New York City has that stays up sometimes years on end.
Yep.
And we did a study some years ago that found out basically when scaffolding would go up in front of a restaurant, business would just plummet by at least 30%.
Oh my God.
And it's not just about business dropping because people don't want to walk under the scaffolding, they don't see the signage of the business, but it also creates unsightly conditions when it's left for long periods of time. Debris gathers, sometimes unhoused people are there, it invites all different types of, just things that you don't want happening in front of the business. So we've been advocating for policies to basically reform scaffolding, to put it up less, take it down quicker when it does go up, and ensure that the public is safe like they are in every other city that has tall buildings but doesn't have scaffolding basically,
everywhere.
Yeah, I joke with my daughter some mornings if I walk her to school, like it rains out, we can almost find a route to get, 20 plus blocks all under scaffolding. That's the only time scaffolding is good, is when it rains.
Is when it's raining. Yeah. I know. My wife and I in our apartment, there was scaffolding out for so long that we didn't realize when they took it down, we had sunlight in our living room on the side, we had no idea that was even a thing.
And we're talking about like organizations and thinking about like, well, what do you do as a hospitality alliance? And like, it does get so specific. So under the outdoor dining law, one of the other things I wrote about in this op-ed for Mayor-elect Mamdani is to make changes to the outdoor dining law that have proven problematic for restaurants. And one of them is what happens when you're paying thousands of dollars for your sidewalk cafe and scaffolding goes up.
Yeah.
Number one, your customers probably don't want to sit at your beautiful sidewalk cafe dining al fresco and looking up and seeing ugly scaffolding.
Yeah.
Two, because a lot of the scaffolding has, all these pillars holding it up in different places. It also limits the pedestrian clear path. And they've made some changes that actually limit the number of seats you could have. So not only does scaffolding make the outdoor dining less attractive for your customers, it also can reduce the number of seats you have. Meanwhile, the restaurant's paying for all of this, and then they're being limited in it. It's unattractive for customers. So there's like real life problems. So we at the Alliance are in the weeds dealing with these public policy issues, from scaffolding to outdoor dining and everything in between.
Can we talk about outdoor dining? The great innovation of COVID. One of the few silver linings of that crisis was outdoor dining. And what do you see the future of outdoor dining in New York?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there are some parts of the new outdoor dining law that are better than the pre-pandemic sidewalk cafe law, but candidly, there are so many reforms that are needed. We saw during the pandemic, out of all the crisis, all the doom and gloom, outdoor dining was one of these amazing public policies that is responsible for saving thousands of restaurants, credited with saving about 100,000 jobs, and also let New Yorkers come out and socialize after they were mandated essentially to be socially distant for months. It activated the streetscape. It brought New York City alive. And I think during the pandemic, it also sent an important message to not only New Yorkers, but the world, that we would get through it, to something visible that people could see, something
that's so
that
true.
people could enjoy when everything else was just so miserable. And when they made the new program, unfortunately, there were some political miscalculations and compromises that really reduced the number of restaurants that would offer outdoor dining, and I think just not live up to the greatness that the policy could be. So the mayor-elect and many members of the city council support policies, for example, roadway dining. It was made seasonal. We warned at the time that if you make roadway dining seasonal, the number of restaurants participating is going to plummet because it's too expensive to set up, break down, store for the winter months, only to pay to have it set up once again. So we need a year-round option. Yeah. And we saw particularly of smaller businesses, particularly outside of Manhattan, that had flourishing outdoor dining and roadway cafes, the streeteries as I call them, opt to not move forward. And the thing that was great about the outdoor dining during the pandemic was the number of restaurants in lower income communities that had outdoor dining, meaning these small businesses benefited, their workers benefited, and people who lived in those communities didn't have to leave their neighborhoods to go dine outdoors. And it activated the streetscape in a really special way. So you see a lot of these areas just lost their outdoor dining because too much red tape, too much cost involved, all things that we want to change.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really a challenge for a lot of restaurateurs, and for the public safety thing too. You have these active communities of people outside. You can really make a difference. Are there any specific neighborhoods or communities in New York City where you're seeing like really innovative solutions, like really a lot of innovation in the restaurant community, a lot of cool things happening? Any kind of undiscovered parts of the city you want to share or highlight?
I mean, there's so many cool, I think that's the great thing about New York too, is, you can pick any borough and then go to every neighborhood. And sometimes, there's just multiple great food restaurant areas within one neighborhood. I mean, if you look at Queens, which has everything, I mean, if you look at Elmhurst, you look at Jackson Heights, I mean, look at Astoria, it's... There's so many great places. But then there's also stuff like, our friends at Bistro up on Alexander Avenue in the South Bronx, innovative things they're doing. I just love the way that they work, with groups like Rethink. They're running businesses, but they're also giving back to the community, and they're doing it with an incredible nonprofit like you that helps amplify the impact. And I think so much of what the industry does, the restaurant industry does, sometimes goes unnoticed. People know we serve food, drinks, and we're social spaces where people come get together and celebrate, have meetings, or just grab a meal. But, every time there's a crisis, a fire, and people are displaced, where are they getting food? I guarantee it's the local restaurants that are stepping up, and they're working with groups like, Rethink Food to make sure that people are getting meals.
For sure.
It's culturally appropriate. It's quality. The local softball team, soccer team, PTA, synagogue, church, mosque, you name it. It's like our industry is just, it's the food thing. We're about giving and giving and giving. And, in addition to the good work that you do, I think that the work also helps elevate and amplify what the industry is doing in a way that, it didn't always have that amplification. It was more happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I completely. I mean, we've spent the last 10 years trying to rebrand this idea of the chef screaming at people and doing all this stuff. Yeah. I mean, chefs are social service workers in a lot of ways. They take care of people and do a lot of amazing things. And our friend Glory Bell at the Workers' Comp Board, restaurateurs and people, who may have started as a dishwasher, now they're running the restaurant, not understanding a lot of these laws. So that 311 workers kind of line idea that you had, can you share more about that?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think, as we were saying, restaurants need to be involved. They need to have their voices heard, and they need a way and forums to have, their voices heard. And we also have to make sure that laws that are enacted understand the realities of, running a small business, running a restaurant, and what they deal with. We say, the city's restaurant industry is generating billions of dollars of economic activity. There's no reason why the city should then on the back end use these small businesses as an ATM with fines and fees and unnecessary taxes. So with Laura Bell and other conversations that we've had, It's making sure that they, as elected officials, understand this, and in their policy making, it reflects it. That, like, any violation that doesn't pose an immediate hazard to the public or to workers should allow for a warning or a cure period before a fine is levied. The focus should be education and compliance first, and levying fines and penalties as a last resort. Same thing like goes with lawsuits. You'd be amazed. I mean, not you personally because you're in it, but like restaurants are sued for things all the time. And then their lawyers come to them and they're like, oh, well, we could litigate this and you'd probably win, but it's going to cost you $500,000. But you could settle now for $35,000. Like, what do you think a small business is going to do? Yeah. So it's educating our lawmakers about these issues and then helping them enact policies that reflect, the needs of the industry.
Yeah, and I think people go to restaurants, and I say this about some of the restaurants I worked at. Oh, it's so expensive. The owner must be making just millions and millions of dollars. I mean, after all the costs of doing business in New York City, from rent, from all the taxes, from everything. I mean, it's the margins are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Which we get really concerned about because we're concerned about jobs, and it could be one bad policy could really push us in the right direction.
Absolutely, and one good policy can help. On the flip side, do good stuff, and that's why it's the balance. And I also think when you kind of cross pollinate sectors, and like when restaurants are working with food relief organizations, it's extra powerful because you're doing the good work. But I think policymakers also see that, like, wow, look at the civic interest and civic support from the nonprofit sector, from the restaurant sector, and how they're coming together to do what needs to be done without government. But imagine what we could do if government actually supports these efforts.
For sure. What if they contracted within the 5 boroughs? Maybe give that a shot.
Yeah, that would be a great one.
A good one. Yeah, no, it's been really, we at Rethink, we didn't realize how much kind of influence we had because, look, I am a cook. Mm-hmm. And when we started handing out meals in every borough, and then when we called, one of my favorite Councilmember Julie Wan, and I needed some help with something, she picked up the phone and she said, well, you've been feeding the community for 3 years. And I was like, well, that's what we're supposed to do. But if we can really electrify the sector and show that their civic engagement, they do listen. They really do listen. They show up.
Absolutely. And they want to look good in their communities. I mean, they have to represent their district. And guess what? In every district in New York City, there are a lot of restaurants for the most part. And there's a lot of people who work in those restaurants. And you want them to succeed. You don't want vacant storefronts. Yeah. You don't want people out of work. You don't want people not to have good places to go eat and socialize.
That's the fabric. I mean, it's New York. Restaurants and museums, right? Like that's that's why we come here. Yeah. Not for the waterfront. Not for the beach. All right, these are some AI generated questions that we do with everybody just to see. And what was the prompt for AI was probably something of what are some interesting questions we can ask the executive director of the hospitality. We had self-made questions.
Use AI to answer that?
yeah, we can just self-store it too. We can just generate the whole thing. And I actually really like this because I have heard a lot of these. But what's the most interesting thing that a restaurant owner, surprising, I guess is the word, a restaurant owner showed you that has helped you shape your perspective of the restaurant industry?
Yes. That's a good one. The thing that the restaurant owner has shown me, it's not like one thing at a point where they're like, hey, check this out. And I was like, I think it's just the ongoing relationship and communication of what they are constantly going through. They call up and they get some crazy inspection from an agency that frustrates them. And you're like, oh, well, we got to fix that. But then they say like, hey, I'm working with a great organization like Rethink Food and I'm, donating these meals. And then they say, hey, come, I'm opening up a new place. Check out Friends and Family. And then you go and you talk to, the people that are learning the menu and, you see what's going on. So I think it's the one thing, again, it's not like such direct, but it's like the journey of seeing the day-to-day ebbs and flows of what people do in our industry. And I think that gives me the passion and the know-how to really advocate for them effectively and authentically.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it really is a grind, man. I've seen so much of it. Yeah. I mean, one of the things we saw that.
But then also other things, like growing up, I remember when I was really little, like 5 or 6 years old, I was working at my family's bakery. I'd be rolling Rugalo with one hand. My grandfather would be like, "What's the matter? Your other hand's broken?" So like always,
always
two hands.
Full hands in, full hands out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So,
full hands in, full hands out.
Or little things about like making yourself know when you're coming around a turn and
corner.
So all those little things too.
Yeah. I totally, man. I also just like, I was always shocked when I saw how much restaurants do give back for, because even before Rethink started doing what it did, we met with restaurateurs and we're like, I cook for my church every Saturday. I give 300 meals away. And I'm like, really?
Totally.
It's just, we just rebranding them is like now my mission in life to be the new community center past what they've been looked at.
That's great.
What's the biggest misconception that people have about our industry from the outside, do you think?
Oh, that it's like glamorous and everybody is making tons of money. It's like you have your friends and your family to the restaurant and you're just a party all the time and you're making, tons of money. And not to say there's not like glamorous, really cool aspects of it like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, being in the basement and doing inventory or, having a reservation system go down right before dinner service on Thursday or Friday night. And, if someone doesn't show up and you're, a person, a line cook short or something and, all those things. It is a grind. It is a difficult business. And I don't think people always recognize that. And I think it's why the people that are so passionate about it, it has to be in your DNA in a sense to be successful, especially for the long term. So it's like a super difficult industry, but it's also the best industry if it's in you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, we screen for hospitality at Rethink, so we really, really love having people there. If you could host a dream dinner with any 3 New Yorkers, I'm gonna say present, because that's too broad. There's a lot of past New Yorkers.
Cool. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of Cashfield too. I'll do both. Fiorello LaGuardia, Joe and Rivers,
nice,
and RZA.
Nice. Not Cardi B. No Cardi B.
She got that.
I want Cardi B to be.
So I feel like if we do present, we can definitely add. I mean, there's so many. That's a good question. There's so many good people. That could be like that should be a TV series, like dinner with 3 New Yorkers.
I love that. I love it. No, actually, it's a good thing because I watched this. I love Cardi B with my whole heart, and I actually think she just embodies New York in such an incredible way. But she just posted this video recently where she was talking about how she's sorry for asking people to buy her album because of she just looked on Street Easy and saw how much an apartment was in Andersonville. And so she was like, "You can download it for free. I don't care. Steal it. I'm so sorry. It's too expensive." But how are restaurants handling the affordability crisis? It's bad out there.
Well, that's the problem. It's there is also a value perception for consumers. There's a real pocketbook issue for consumers. And the cost of everything running a restaurant, labor, insurance, rent, tariffs, everything, congestion pricing, the, electrician. I mean, everything has gone up, and it's very sensitive and dicey issue of how you incorporate your operational expenses into menu price increases. So I think it's really tough. I think, restaurants do not price their menus. Like a customer may be like, wow, that restaurant's a casual restaurant, but it's really expensive. But if they really understood if everything was being priced at the price it really should be, how much more expensive it would be. So I think we're in a really tough place. And that's why one of the things with our mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, is the affordability issue. And the affordability issue is not just for residents. The affordability issue is for small businesses. And having an affordable city, there's a direct correlation between the ability and affordability of living here, but then also the businesses in those communities that service the residents and the visitors. And I think he has an opportunity to really try to reduce those costs if possible, more realistically, at least try to mitigate them to slow down the increase, so people can go out and eat in their neighborhood. Restaurants can keep people employed and keep, storefronts vibrant and open.
Yeah, I always hate that narrative, and I talk Daniel and I talk about this from time to time. But like, you know, people, I went out to dinner and it was $300, and like you're like, okay, well, somebody cooked this for you, brought it to you, poured your wine, took care of you, made your dessert, like did all of this wonderful work for you. And if you were to try to buy these services individually, it costs you $500. It's just like, and cleaned up after you and did the whole thing. Like, people should be paying. I'm always proud to pay the bill at a restaurant because I just it is so much. But they give so much themselves and then they lose money. I've talked to so many restaurateurs who are just robbing Peter to pay Paul to get through the next month, It's
really tough. And, you know, I've even seen it over the past, 15, 20 years where, it used to be if you had one successful restaurant, you could have a nice life. Now, yes, there's pressure because you want to open up new concepts and everything. But, to make money, you need to have multiple restaurants in many cases. And then once you have many restaurants, not everyone's going to be successful. So you're often using, money from one in some cases to help the other one stay afloat and give that a chance.
That's so true.
It's complicated, but the one thing that I always think and I try to do is that people even outside of our industry are fascinated in restaurants. They're fascinated with food. They're fascinated with like the socialization and cultures and everything. So we have a great opportunity to tell our industry story. And advocate, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I think it's good for us to come from a place since we don't own restaurants, and like we can kind of tell that story. So you tell people, it's just like, it's incredibly hard. But I think one of the most civic-minded New Yorker things you can do is make sure you're going out to eat at least once a month and just going to your local restaurant and getting a bite. And
I always say it's my civic duty to eat out all the time.
I tell that to my wife. She's like, I'll give me a hard time about it. But no, we do. We really do. We try to go out. We try to go to someplace new. And then I try to go to my neighborhood restaurant at least twice a month because it's so important. And I begrudgingly take the free glass of wine, but I do order the lasagna. Well, all right. I got one more question for you, and it's and the best advice I ever got is be careful who you take advice from. So I always ask people, what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice I've ever gotten. I won't get into the whole backstory of why, but my dad just said, "Go and show up." Said 90% of life is just showing up. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what it's going to lead to. Just show up, work, be honest, be nice, but just be there and let life happen. And I think that's the best thing that I've been told because that's what I do. And I think so many of the opportunities that I've had have been a result of just like showing up and being present and responding to people, and
reaching out.
I get to meet people like you and your team and everyone, and that is a function of just showing up instead of being like,
I'm tired.
Which is easy to do. There's a million reasons to find legitimate excuses why not to do so many things, but sometimes you just need to
I couldn't agree more. I tell my team there's a million reasons not to go for a run. You could hurt your thing. It might rain. You might not have this. You might run out of time. But, there's always very few. And actually, it's really glad you said that because I've gotten that advice from some of the people I respect the most in about 5 different ways. And it is so true. Luck happens to people who get out there.
Yeah, well, that's old saying, right? I find the harder I work, the more luck I have.
Yeah. Any final words you want to share before we,
Yeah, if you're a restaurant, work with Rethink. Support Rethink.
Donate to the hospitality. Join the hospitality.
Support restaurants. But just don't talk about it, be about it. It's that in everyday part of our lives, there's a million things that, we kind of rely or look to other people to do, or it's going to happen without me being part of it. But that's not true. If everybody thought that way or acted that way, nothing would happen. So when you see something you're frustrated with, when you see something you support, you see something that you think would make other things around you better, everybody's busy. Find time, make time, and just do it and show up.
Awesome, man. Well, look, thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
All right.